Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with inspirational people like our new friend here, Alison, to help our listeners find the resources, tools, and support they need to be their best inspired selves. How are you today?
I am doing really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I slept in until 5 minutes before we got on the phone. So I did shower because, otherwise I wouldn't be so cute. But otherwise, I'm pretty fantastic. How about you?
I'm good. I am really just enjoying my days these days. I'm feeling like I'm only stepping into the stuff that brings me joy right now. And that is a totally freeing and relatively new experience because usually my life is so chock-blocked full of things, but being basically in isolation right now, I can just say, nope, I don't want to do that because that doesn't make me happy. And it's reframing everything. It's incredible. I'm loving it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. You're
Yeah.
probably the first person I've heard like really express themselves that way. And I appreciate that there's positivity and that can be found in many situations.
Yeah.
But before
It's
we
what we
get
focus on, right? We can
right,
either focus on the, oh my God, I can't leave the house. And oh my God, I can't go shopping. And oh my God, there's only one Starbucks in open and it's on the other side of town. Like, I could get wrapped up in all of that. But that's not how I want to spend my days.
I I couldn't agree with you more.
Mhm.
Before we get going too deep in it, because we did some chatting before we got on the show
Yes,
together.
we're one person.
Let's make sure you intro yourself. So like
Oh
let the
yeah.
audience know who you are and that they know who we're chit chatting with today.
Yeah, and I just want to say I loved our conversation before we went live here. It's like I think we're the same person. Like this is so cool. Like mothers, or what is it? Sisters from a different mother. I don't know. Whatever that
Let's
is us.
do it like that. That works. I like
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So I am Alison. I own Domino Thinking. I also have a house painting company, and I just am really embracing the things that come along in my life, and I'm trying to follow the threads, right? Like it's that breadcrumb trail, and so. I had this house painting company, and when I started it, I was a single mom on welfare. My boyfriend had just died. He was a drug addict. He'd relapsed right before I moved in with him, and then he passed away from a brain disease probably caused from all the drug use. And I found myself on welfare again, and I was like, oh God, what am I supposed to do? So I started my house painting company, and I was just like, I got to put food on the table for my kid. It wasn't his kid, but I still had to feed him. He was mine. And so I started this house painting company, and navigating that whole construction world as a woman was just such an fascinating experience. And it still is. Like we think 20 years we've come a long way. Nah, we haven't. We just pretend we have. um, but it's been really interesting. And then in the last couple of years, starting Domino Thinking has just been it's just this vast things that I get to do, and it's incredible.
I love it. I think you talk about just briefly, you brought up the idea of being a woman in kind of a male role. And then we talked again offline, but like my grew up, my dad was a painter and we used to go permit chinking as well, like log cabins, which is really kind of a neat
Cool.
side thing. But I ended up going into computer science, seeing a far away from painting, but I was the only female that graduated in my class, which was a couple like 20 years ago. And it was definitely also very much like that. It was being like the only of something is always difficult. I mean, I can understand, empathize with uh, minority groups in different ways, right? If you're the only, I was the only white person that went
Mm,
to a high school of 5,000 for at one point. We were the only poor white family in a black neighborhood growing up. And I think that having to navigate something where you're breaking down barriers that haven't been there before, it can be both difficult, but it also can be extremely rewarding.
yeah.
And so I think that that's something that in your painting business you did, but it might be a good lead in. I also think that's kind of a big part of domino thinking for you is breaking down some old ways of thinking and old ways of being to show up how you are showing up now. And so
Oh, yeah. It's a collection of all of the things. And that's the beautiful thing in life, right? It's that building, we learn this and then we screw it up and then we learn from that and then we screw it up and we learn from that. And then we're able to bring all of this into our situations. And the more we can do it with awareness, I think the better we are. You know, for being a woman in the trades, I named my company Sunshine Girls Painting because previously when my boyfriend was still alive and he taught me how to paint, I would go to a job site and people would be like, you're a girl, you can't do this, or I'm not going to talk money with you. Show me the guy. I want to talk to the guy about money. And they really treated me like I couldn't do it. And I just thought, well, if I'm having my own company, I'm making it known it's a female run company. Of course, there's blinders because then people are like, well, you can't hire men. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's illegal. Why would I not hire somebody based on gender? Like, and then I'd have the marketers saying, oh, the best man for a job is a woman. And I'd be like, oh, yuck. No, I don't want that. They might want that segregation. The other painters definitely gave me a hard time for being a woman in that industry, and often enjoyed leading me astray by giving false information and seeing if they could just put me out of business, or phoning up clients pretending to be me and saying that they were withdrawing bids. So there was a lot of that sort of stuff that happened, but I was busy trying to put food on the table. So I just kept my focus. I stayed in my lane and I did my own thing. And I really believe that when we can let go of that segregation and understand that we are all just human beings in these meat suits trying to do the best we can, it's much easier to navigate some of these things that people put up barriers around.
Yeah, I love that. I love that kind of, I like meat suit. That cracks me up because it always reminds me of the Edgar suit from Men in Black or the cockroach.
Oh,
So I was like, I'm not wearing my Edgar suit today. Thank you all very much. However, one of the things that really stood out for me, and I love that you said that, which means we are probably sisters. Just because we're women and we want rights as women doesn't mean we hate men. And I worry so much about like some of the feminist movement. Like if you're a woman, you're a feminist. You believe that women are good. It doesn't mean you have to believe men are bad. Like we actually
yeah,
right
I
to
had
procreate.
such a fascinating journey around that. And I would not call myself a feminist because I don't believe in labels, and one, I don't want anything that segregates, and that's my choice. For other people, it's different and I can respect that. But I think there's a really nasty toxic feminism out there that teaches us that we are better than men. And I had a guest on my podcast. I'd given a speech about how I was raped in high school and how it wasn't until I got to the place where I understood how I co-created the events without shame or blame or letting him off the hook or condoning his behavior, any of that stuff, just simply looking at the construction of that experience. I participated in that dance. I didn't deserve it, but I did participate. And we can get into all of that later if you want to. But this guy reached out to me later and he told me about when he was raped by his wife and put in the hospital for 3 days. And then he was laughed out of the police station when he tried to report her. And somewhere during that conversation, I went, I have not been treating men fairly. Now, if anybody had asked me, I'd be like, yeah, dudes are fine. Like, whatever. I like them. They're my, sexual partner of choice. Like guys are good, like whatevs, we get along. But there was definitely this indoctrination that I had adopted without my permission, and it kind of pissed me off that men were somehow less than. And I spent a year bringing people on my podcast talking about men's rights and feminism and how do we bridge that gap. Because it's like I said earlier, we are all in this together. And there's a lot of really great things that men have brought to the world. And so it's been a really fascinating journey. And I feel stronger and more settled and more comfortable being female when I see men better. Because I can't feel good about myself if I'm ostracizing an entire half of the population. Like, how is that even possible? I can't feel good about being white if I'm putting black down. And so in order for us to really feel good, there has to be this love and acceptance that goes on.
Yeah, I feel like super generic. Like, yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that my husband and I talk a lot about it because he's a nice guy, right? He's a very nice guy. And he's gotten to the point where when we met, right, we've been married 20 years. We've been together since 1995. And he would, or 96, he would open the door for me, which I am a strong woman, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. I was like, oh my gosh, he opened the door for me. And he opened the car door and he'd like let me in. And I had some friends, female friends, who were like, why are you letting him treat you like that? I was like, what, like a queen? Like, because it's super awesome and I totally dig it. But he got so poorly treated for being a gentleman at work, he doesn't do it anymore. Not even
That
for me.
is so sad.
And he goes, and so he points it out. He's like, there's a point where we've now vilified all men. And Me Too did happen, right? There's no doubt about that. And the Harvey Weinstein stuff did happen. And gosh, all those people that none of us would have thought, it did happen. But he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Not every man in the world did not.
They're not all Harvey
overnight, right?
Yeah. And even Harvey, I think we didn't have real good, honest conversations about that either, you know, because for example, one of my first jobs, I shouldn't say first, when I moved out of the house, I got this job working in a restaurant, and it was my friend's uncle that owned it. And he called me downstairs, the uncle, and because he wanted my social insurance number, whatever it was. And so I go down there and he's on the couch with his pants undone. And he's like, I didn't call you down here to have sex, but if you want to. And he was like being very aggressive and pushy about it. And I kind of went, here's my social insurance number. And I quit. And so there is always that choice. And so if I had gone there and went, oh, I really should keep this job because being a waitress is so important to me, and I'd had sex with him, I participated in that, right? He wouldn't have had a gun to my head. So I think, have you watched The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon?
Yes. And I really did I like it a lot. I think it has a lot.
I think they gave like that whole gamut of all of the intricacies. And, you know, when Steve Carell, is that his name, was having sex with the black intern, the woman, sorry, I'm not trying to be racist. She was black. She knew that she was black too. And was that the one with the brunette?
Yeah.
I had a boyfriend that I dated, and he is black, and he was black at the time. And I remember being in a place and somebody says, oh, who's your boyfriend? And I'm like, oh, he's the black guy over there. Cause he was the only black guy in the room. And they're like, you can't say that. And I'm like, he knows he's black. Like, it's okay. And so it was so interesting. So every time
it's just one of those other topics, exactly the same kind.
Right. Yeah. If he was the only one in a yellow shirt, I would have said he's the one in the yellow shirt. It was just an identifying marker. Anyway, so when he was having sex with this woman and the camera could see her face and her resistance, but he couldn't. Right. And so he thought it was totally fine. She got a raise. She got a better position. It was a fair deal. And she didn't try to stop it. And so there's all of this really interesting stuff, but we are so reluctant to have a conversation about all of it and understand how we all co-create it. We're all in this dance together. And it's not fair to vilify men just to make women feel better. Like that's nasty.
Well, like for me, one of the things that I always come back to being a mom is I've got 2 boys and 2 girls, right? I want my boys to also be safe and have a life and a fulfilling partnership, and to be able to be nice guys, right? And for that to be fine.
Yeah.
And so I have to rethink everything and figure out how can we be fair so that my sons are both good men and safe, right? Because now what happens to villains, right?
Well, yeah. They did it to witches. They're doing it to men. Like it's no different. Like we might not be burning them at the stake, but are we really not burning them at the stake? And, and so when I talk to feminists and stuff, and they're like, well, men have to fix this for us. Men don't have to do anything. So you want to fix your life, you fix your life. Or talking to feminists about, okay, so if the ship is going down, women and children first. And they're like, well, yes. Well, that's not fair.
You can't have it both ways, right?
Yeah, we can't pick and choose, and we do. And it's a human nature too. But if we can create, and I still do it, like there are still some things that I'm like, but I'm a girl. And then I go, whoa, So it's always, removing those blinders, and we're always going to have the blinders. So there's always this task of checking in and seeing how you're behaving.
And I think what's wonderful about that is that you can, right? So I'm in my mid 40s and I'm learning, I'm learning things about myself, prejudice I have, right? Stereotypes that I have that I thought, oh, I don't have those. I grew up, the only white kid. I grew up this way. I grew up that way. I grew up poor. We lived in a car. I'm not sexist, racist, genderist,
Yeah.
ist. I'm not ist. And then I go, well, but shouldn't I get to go first? Like in your head, like I'm like, nope, you don't. Right. But it was like part of our initial programming, part of
Yeah.
how we were raised. And so I think there's something to be said for, I don't know if we said this on or off camera, but there isn't a fault.
Mm-hmm.
It just an is, right?
Yeah.
It's not my fault that I was pre-programmed to be Catholic, believe God was a certain way, believe men were a certain thing, believe women are a certain thing. But it is a choice that I can make now if I continue to believe those things and try to be more aware and try to see them and then decide if I want to change the behavior. You don't always have to. Maybe you're perfectly fine with some of the beliefs that you're brought to have. I found myself checking a few things
Yeah.
but I was recently speaking to someone. I have a lot of friends who are same-sex couples, same-sex marriages, and my daughter is amazing. She's 14 and she's super aware and super smart, and she listens to me talk about things, and she goes to a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
And she came home very, very upset one day because they're doing this thing called Theology of the Body, is where they basically teach you to never let anyone ever touch you, and your body's disgusting, and God says women should never be. It's like just stupid stuff.
No.
And all gay people are an abomination, right? She is pissed. Like
Yeah.
14 and already has enough. But then I was like, wait a minute, I think we raised her different, right? We programmed her a little different than what we were programmed to be. And I love the fact that she was aware and went, no, I don't like your doctrine. I think that you're separating people. And so that was something new for me, where I was like, okay, wow. Yeah, you're right. We were taught that. Oh my gosh, we were taught other people were not as good as us.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Like, I thought we were and everyone was amazing. And everybody loved everyone.
Yeah, but only if you're in that echo chamber.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And we do it with everything. Right. And then we get, especially, and this is one of the things I'm worried about with this COVID time, is that we are spending so much more time online to connect with people. And I am curious about how many people are actually aware that the algorithms, the things that you are seeing, is not balanced. Right. And I think we do not have a right to a belief unless we consider the other perspective, because you don't even know the entire spectrum, and you don't have to know the entire spectrum. But for example, I'm pro-choice and I will never be pro-life. Like, I just won't be. Choice is such a huge, huge thing for me. But I have studied pro-life. I understand it. I talk to pro-lifers. I ask questions. I am not an extreme pro-choicer, but I do believe we have the right to do what we want with our body, be it relationships we get into. I am a supporter of assisted suicide. I am a supporter of suicide. If that's what somebody wants to do with their body, I'm a supporter of addiction. If that's what they want to be doing with their body, that is their choice and they have the right to make it. But I never used to consider the other perspective. I never used to think about life, pro-lifers, because they were just wrong. So I just discarded them sleight of hand. And then I recognized that my worthiness was tied up in my belief of pro-choice. Because if I could get on a rampage about pro-choice, it talked about freedom. It talked about choice. I had righteous indignation. Single mom on welfare, I didn't have any freedom. I didn't have choices. I wasn't allowed to have righteous indignation because I was a less than person. But when I got on my soapbox and I could talk about pro-choice, damn. And now I have freedom, I have choice, and I don't feel the right to have righteous indignation because my worthiness is intact. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody now that's pro-life, I'm good. Like, I just get to be curious. So what makes you believe that? And then what do you think in this situation? And how do you navigate that? And because I'm willing to consider the gamut, now I have a right to my belief because it's earned.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I haven't really thought of it that way. The like right to your belief system.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think I've just framed it differently. I've always said, um, I I look at both sides of it. So this is a good topic and a terrible topic all at the same time, right? I'm about to split an audience. But what I always say is I seem really wishy-washy, and it's not that I am. What it is that I'm not even talking about abortion rights. I'm pro rights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to support something that takes anyone's right away.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter whether I think gay couples are good or bad. I happen to have no issue personally, but it doesn't matter to me if I did, because I'm about not taking away rights. So I would rather you have the right to get married any way you want to whomever you want, because I have no idea what the rest of my life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need that right later, if I need or want that later, I don't want to have it taken away from me.
Yeah.
Just like I don't believe, personally, I don't think I would ever get an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been raped and pregnant. I don't know how I
Mm-hmm.
would behave then. I don't
You've never
know.
been told that if you have an illness and if you take that baby to
You die. Yeah, I've
term,
never
you
been
could
told that.
die and then leave your kids homeless, like, or motherless.
Exactly.
So yeah,
I've never
there's
been
variables.
there. I've never been there. So because I've never been there, uh, I don't. How do I know? I don't want those options that are available out there to be taken away in the event that I'm not as strong as I think I am. I'm not able.
Mm.
I'm not as righteous as I think I am. Right? I'm just me, and
Yeah.
now I'm in a circumstance where, holy crap. And I do feel strongly about rights for a huge reason. And it was a couple years ago, and I have permission to share the story, but my mother was raped by a family member when she was 13, and she got pregnant. And until that day, my mom was going to be a nun, and she was dead set, like that's what her life calling was. That's what she was supposed to be. Um, when they found out that happened, she was pretty far along, like 6 months or so. And back then, right? So my mom's in her 60s.
Mm.
It was illegal to have an abortion, but her whole family got together and they had a family conversation, which is a pretty huge deal because it's an old Catholic family. And they're like, she's such a young person. If we don't do this, right, there's all these implications. She could die, she could this, she could that. So they took her to this chop shop in Milwaukee, and she tells the whole story, and I'm not going to because it's so not acceptable and disgusting and horrid. But she was 6 months pregnant, and they took the baby out. And she was on a metal slab, was where they did this to her. And my mom went through all of that because we took away a right. And so I don't want to be one of those people that steal the rights of others away, because I don't want it to happen to anyone else. Then I think that we lost the other person. Let's see if we stop video. Hello? Are you still there? You still there?
Yeah, I am.
No, I can hear you great. So I was like, so I told this real dramatic story, and then I'm like, hello.
I
But
don't know where it ended
so,
up.
so ultimately, no, we're fine.
I think it ended at the metal slab, and she was 6 months
So,
pregnant.
right. So they cut up the baby and pulled parts of it out, stuck in a trash bag, and she watched them throw it away. And they broke her. My mom's still broken. She'd never said or told anyone that story ever until a couple of years ago. I was the first person she'd ever talked to in
Wow.
her whole life. And no surprise, my mom's still an active addict, an alcoholic. And everyone was like, how this beautiful girl and all this thing she had going for her, how did she become so broken?
Mm-hmm.
well, world happened to her. So I'm pro right.
Yeah.
I I don't want any other 13-year-old girls to have the rest of their life broken, because her brokenness raised 2 kids from her state of feeling unworthy,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
she passed that on, and then we had to find a way to decide how we were going to be worthy, raised to that people weren't valuable, right?
Yeah.
That life wasn't valuable. And so I can't be anti options.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
what I stand firm on.
Yeah.
And
And that's a beautiful way of putting it, and but I think so much of that is tied to your relationship with your worthiness, right? Because we attach ourselves to things so that we can get external validation for our worth. So, and this is the work that I deal with Domino Thinking. We are born miracles. Like when you think about this tiny egg, tiny sperm, they meet up and they could have been another, how many options, but it made you. Like, that's amazing. Nobody's ever looked at a baby and go, that's not a miracle, right? Like we look at babies and we're like, what a miracle. Like, how, like that is incredible. When I look at my 30-year-old son and I'm thinking he used to be this big and I'm like, whoa, right? Like it's incredible. And so because we're miracles, we have internal worth. And then we are born and the world tells us we're not good enough. And then horrible things happen to us, like what happened to your mother, and which is, oh my God, it's so heartbreaking. I'm going to have feelings about that for a little while.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good though, because what it does is it allows us to stretch our position on things. It allows us to contemplate and go forward, maybe with more compassion, more whatever, right? And I totally agree with you. I love the fact that you say you don't want to take rights away, because essentially that's my position on it. I just never considered it that way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we said the same thing. We just have a different reframe, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but I hadn't actually broken it down to that smallest piece of people just should have rights. And so thank you. But we're born and then the world tells us we're not good enough. And then we spend the rest of our life trying to convince the world that we're good enough. And so then we try to get our worth externally, which means we're people pleasing, which means we give our happiness away, which means we live in this victim state. If only they would love me more. Why can't they? That person hurt my feelings. Oh, you triggered me, right? And when we can start moving away from getting our worth externally and get it internally, then we can stand strong and okay regardless of what is happening out there. And that is a much happier way of going through life. And so when I hear you talking about the rights, like, your worth around that is just so intact that you are not going to be triggered. And I'd like to say, when you get triggered, there's an opportunity to say thank you to that other person for showing you there's work to be done. But you have that strength inside of you that says, I may not agree with it, but overall I agree with this. So therefore you do you. And I am not going to feel like a lesser person if you do you. So I just think it's beautiful where you're at with that.
Oh, thank you. I,
Mm.
I think a lot of it comes from having a daughter on the autism spectrum.
Mm.
I and my kids are amazing because they have her, but I have this. It's a different perspective, but I don't believe in equality the way that a lot of people do. I believe
I
in
am not surprised.
well, it's more equity of outcome, right? I
Mm.
think we all have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, like that's
Yeah.
our rights. Um, it makes no sense for you to give my daughter certain things you would give my other kids.
Mm-hmm.
The outcome won't be the same. She won't be able to use it the way that other kids would. So is it really equal then, right? Is it really equal?
Oh, I have this conversation all the time. I so love you for bringing it up.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you love. But it's not necessary. It's interesting because I think sometimes I feel like I stand in a different way than many of the people in our community, the autism community. But I'm not taking anything from our kids. Gosh, I'm all about, right. I love my daughter. I want her to have everything that she could possibly
That
have.
she needs based on who she is.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but giving her, we're not going to give her a Lamborghini ever, ever, never, ever, as she would say. Right? It just doesn't even make sense. But if everyone gets one, she should get one too, right? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Just like a friend of ours is, her son is, he's a paraplegic. He's in a chair, and he could only talk with his eyes on the screen. So
Mm.
he needed to get a special monitor and some like electronic equipment. It was very, very expensive, and essentially like a really smart iPad kind of thing. Yeah, he did need that. Does my 6-year-old need that? No.
Mm-hmm.
She's not getting screwed because she
Yeah.
doesn't have the eyeball reader, right?
Yeah.
She has other things that she needs. So I think we have to be considerate of for me, again, it's about, like, you choose to evoke your rights however you want. I'll invoke mine the way I want. But the other thing is, it's um, like men and women being paid the same, or women being this and men being that.
Mhm.
I just want equity of outcome opportunity,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
don't want to be a nurse, right? Some guy, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a certain things, but
Mhm.
just because there's not enough women doctors, should we all go be doctors so we're equal?
Should we stop men from being doctors
Is
because
that
there's too
men?
many of them?
Right.
Yeah. And there's so much damage going on around that. Like Will Ferrell, not Will Ferrell. Oh God, what's his name? Warren Farrell.
Okay.
Will Ferrell's the actor. Warren Farrell is the one that wrote. He used to be the leading male feminist in America. And then he started saying, but what about men? Like, hang on, this isn't equal. This isn't fair. Where are we going with this? And they ostracized him. And then he wrote the Myth of Male Power and the Boy Crisis. And he talks about the wage gap, and in ways that a lot of people, again, it's that we're not willing to have that full conversation, just like with Harvey Weinstein. It's that women actually have more happiness markers in their jobs. They may get paid less, but they work more often, not Monday to Friday, like more often than a man would. Less likely to be transferred, more likely to work in safe, healthy environments. They spend more money a year trying to make a workplace have proper language for women than they do in actually making safe work sites for men. Like, so it's acceptable for them to die on a job site, but it's not acceptable for a woman to have something said to her on a job site. So, right. And so when we start looking at equality, you're absolutely right. It is a huge conversation, and we can't just answer it with everyone should be equal. Well, we're not the same.
Yeah. My husband said something the other day that was one of those things where you're like, crap, you're right. And then I felt bad, actually. It's like you said, I was like, oh, that's going to stick. He's like, especially during COVID, he's like, we're back to being expendable.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, who do you think's going to a grocery store? Who do you think's out there working essential jobs?
Yeah.
He's like, it's all of the men. And he's like, what's crazy about that? We're the least likely to take proper safety precautions.
And they have a higher rate of catching it.
Right.
Yeah. So they're more predisposed to get sick from this than women are naturally.
And I was like, do you want me to go get groceries? He's like, no. But he's like, but
Mm-hmm.
we have this idea. So you don't get both things, right? You can't say men are expendable. We send them to war because women and children matter. If the boat goes down, save the women and children. The men are expendable. All of these things, but then, right, we want their power too. We want that power that they have. We want their job that they have. I just want what I want. Oh,
well, but in doing so with that, we take away the beautiful things that women have brought to the world. I got so sick and tired of hearing like, oh, men have done all of this and we need to be more like men. No, I'm really happy being female. I'm really happy having a different type of empathy than men do. I really enjoy problem solving different than men do. And if we all act like men, who is going to take care of all of that other part? I had a guest on my show and he said, men brought us technology, women brought us empathy, right? We both had really, really important jobs in creating this patriarchy. Like we have, it's not just an imposition of will. Women have had so much power, and it just drives me crazy when we act like women have never had power, because we have always been extremely powerful. That's why they burned us. Right? Because they were afraid of our power. And so I think that when we start ostracizing men and then saying we should be more like them, where does that leave us?
It even makes sense, right? It's such a weird thing. We
Yeah.
should be like this, but we hate it.
Right? Yeah.
And I wonder if it comes back to, right, the self-worth thing.
Everything, in my opinion, the worthiness is the foundation of every single thing. I've talked to so many psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors, and to say, tell me something that is lower on this foundation than worthiness. And everybody's been like, well, no, like, I don't know. Talked to a clinical psychologist, and she was just like, they don't even have this. They don't even teach us about this stuff that you talk about. When we talk about Brene Brown, who is like, I think she's amazing.
I love it. Yeah.
But she talks about vulnerability, right? And that ability to be honest. You can't be honest if you don't have a relationship with your worthiness. It then becomes manipulation. I am going to do this so that you behave that way, because that's how I need you to be, so I feel okay about me. And so everything that we hear out there, it's like the pure, like it's not, when you're building that house, it's not even coming close to being what the foundation is. So every single thing we say, do, how we dress, all of it is tied to our relationship with our worth.
So is that what you talk about in your company?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a process called Brave. It's a free download on my website. And so it helps you when you enter into the situation where you're like, and you want to react. It can help you stop the reaction, because when you bump up against something, somebody says something that hurts your feelings, that like lasts 4 to 7 seconds. And then you are telling a story. Oh, that person is so mean. Oh, I remember when I was 5 and somebody else said that to me. Oh, right. Like, it all becomes a story. So this process helps you go, okay, I'm going to breathe through those first 4 to 7 seconds. I'm probably going to try breathing into like 10 or 15 seconds. And then I'm going to decide who I am. And so it's a really helpful thing. And you can use it for anything. You can use it for food, right? You get that craving, and then you can go, okay, I'm going to breathe through this craving. Yeah, I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to breathe through this craving and decide who I want to be. And so it's a really effective, easy, simple. I like easy and simple. Everything gets nice and simple, which is why I love it comes down to rights. That's it. Full stop. I'm like, I love you. And then I offer a program. It's an 8-week program that helps people understand how we fall victim to things, understands where our worth is coming from. And it's super affordable. It's $97. It's a self-guided thing, because I just want as many people to be able to go through it as possible. And there's, if you want to add on coaching and that sort of stuff, you can, but I don't know if it's absolutely necessary. Like, for some people, they might want to book an hour or something with me, but we're essentially spend the $97. It is so worth getting your life back.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I have a program that's not the same, but I call the Press Play Lifestyle, and it's a 6 steps. Everything I do is a 3, 6, or 9. It's some kind of obsession. I don't know. They make everything simple, but is essentially what I feel super strongly about is women my age, or that are in my season of life. I think we all, like, remember when you were in college or high school, like at the end of an academic thing, and you're like, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to college, or I'm going to go work at this job, or I'm going to, whatever it is you're going to do. And you have this life path. And you had a goal for a little while, right? And then you had life. Then you had a kid at 20, right? And then you had the boyfriend, and then you had this, and you have this, and you have this. We never really pause again and go, do I still want what that 18-year-old girl wanted?
Are we romanticizing it?
I'm still marching to the drum. I'm still in that plan of action, and still working toward this big goal. But I've got 4 kids now, right? I have a husband now. I have all these things that I didn't account for the time suck on, right? Like, all of these changes, all of these, I swear I wasn't even mature enough to make any decisions until I was 28. Thankfully, I was going to have my first kid, but I still wasn't ready, right? And
I certainly wasn't ready to be a mom at 20. I mean, whoa. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think part of it is, like you said, both of us use a similar, I think it's the pause. Catching the pause, or forcing the pause. Because we are different. We have had new experiences. We have participated in life in a new way. And how beautiful it is to pause for a moment and go, as you said, I don't say this, I love this, but who am I being? Who do I want to be? Do I want to be on that same path? Do I want to react the way I always have, or do I want to respond?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think it's in that 4 to 7 seconds where you take your power back. Because
Yeah.
when you respond, you're powerful.
Mm-hmm.
When you react is when you feel weak.
Yeah.
You aren't, but you feel like you are.
Well, you're trying to get your worth from something at that point. When we react, that's a sure sign we're trying to get our worth from something else, right? What, you can't say that to me. Now I'm trying to get my worth because I'm trying to feel powerful. And in the process, I'm taking your worth away because I'm telling you how you get to be.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's this, when we spend our time trying to get our worth elsewhere, we are stealing other people's worth. And that's just not right.
Yeah. Then we're taking their rights away, right?
Back to that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love
So
it.
we're gonna mush together at some point worth and rights and see how
Yeah.
does
I'm
that go out?
going to play around with that for a long time in my head. They tend to, get that little bit and then it's like a earworm, like a bad song,
Yeah.
but this will be a good song.
Baby shark, do 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 do. You're welcome for that. So, where can people find your brave
Yeah.
technique, and where can they find you if they would like to get some of the support that clearly your ideas are very clear and they can learn a lot about you here. So, what if they
Mhm.
want to hang out with you some more?
The easiest thing is dominothinking.com. It's my website. Everything is there. So the Brave is there. It's right on the homepage. You can just download it. And then if you don't want anything else from me, that's fine. But if you do nothing else, just go and get it. It's free. And my program is on there. My podcast is on there. My blog. If you want to schedule a time to talk with me, if something has come up through all of this, don't sit on it. Like if you want to just like pick up the phone or send an email, I'll pick up the phone and we can have like a 15 half-hour chat. I don't mind doing that for free because I don't ever want to leave somebody feeling that like, oh, I don't know what to do, like that ugliness. Like I don't think we have a right to leave people in that state. So if anybody wants to reach out, I answer all of my emails. It might take me a little while, but I do answer all of them. It's really important to me. So please, if you have any questions, reach out.
Well, thank you. We'll make sure to put all your information in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking time. I know you had a bit of a headache when we started, so hopefully our wonderful conversation helped a little bit with that. But
It's helped enormously.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
look forward to staying in touch. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being who you are in the world. So thank you.